everyone, and welcome to a new video. It's been a very long time since I've sat down in my room and actually filmed a proper video. I did take a couple weeks off because I was a guest at Fan Expo Vancouver last weekend, and that took a lot of time and preparation, and also I'm just kind of like out of video ideas. There's not a lot of stuff that I can think of to like film and do, so I had to kind of take a bit of a break. I still don't have a lot of really good video ideas. I actually got the idea for this video from my video notebook. This is one that I wrote down like years ago and just never filmed. So we're digging deep. We're kind of scraping the bottom of the barrel for video ideas. So that's where we're at. Okay, so today we're gonna be doing a mistaken identity cosplay story time. This is gonna be a compilation of a bunch of shorter stories, none of which have enough like bulk to be their own cosplay story time. So I'm just gonna compile them and make a fun little cosplay story time video for you guys. About 7 years ago, so we're really on top of the times, we're really on top of the trends right now. There's this trend on Instagram among cosplayers called Wrong Cosplay Wednesday. And it was where on a Wednesday, people would take a photo of their cosplay and then a picture of the character that they were mistaken for at a convention and put them together and kind of compare and contrast and be like, this is what I was mistaken for. And it was like a fun thing to kind of just like laugh at, because it does happen at conventions. Like sometimes you'll go to a convention, people will see your cosplay and they might not be totally up to speed on like exactly what the character looks like. So they'll kind of do an estimation in their head and then go up to you and be like, oh, are you this character? And of course, you aren't. So it makes for some very funny stories. It makes for some interesting interactions. And so I thought I would share some of my own wrong, oh, that was my microphone. Some of my Wrong Cosplay Wednesday-esque stories for you guys. So that's what we're going to be doing today. So let's jump into it. So the first instance is very iconic for me. If you guys remember back in 2017 or 2018, probably 2017, I did a cosplay story time about how I upset a small child while I was in cosplay. And to sum that interaction up, basically I was cosplaying Lapis from Steven Universe, a girl gang version. And this little girl came up to me. She was about 6 or 7, and she came up and she asked me if I was Sadness from Inside Out. And I thought that maybe she would know who Lapis was, so I very politely was like, oh no, I'm actually Lapis from Steven Universe. And this was the complete wrong answer to give. Like she was not happy about that. She was extremely disappointed. She kind of reluctantly got a photo with me and then left. And I felt very bad. So the joke is always that I wasn't cosplaying Sadness, but I was Sadness in that moment because of how I let down this small child. So there was that interaction. And then it also happened once before that. I was actually debuting my default Lapis cosplay back at a convention in like, I don't know, 2014, I think, 2014, 2015. And this woman actually came up to me and was like, oh my gosh, like she was very excited. She was like, oh my gosh, are you Sadness? And I'm like, no, I'm Lapis from Steven Universe. And she's like, oh, okay. And like, obviously didn't know who that character was. So we just kind of like awkwardly went our separate ways, and that was that. So obviously for Lapis, it makes a lot of sense. She has light blue skin, dark blue hair. So does Sadness from Inside Out. So, you know, it makes sense. Like they have very different outfits. One has glasses, one doesn't. But if you're kind of going off of like your rough estimation of what the character looks like, it definitely makes sense that you would like mistake Lapis for Sadness. So that's probably like for me the most iconic and like most commonly mistaken cosplay that I've had was definitely Lapis for Sadness. The next mistaken cosplay that I have is Beth Tazuka from Bravest Warriors. Now this is a cosplay that nobody recognized, even Catbug cosplayers. If you don't know, Catbug is also from Bravest Warriors. Bravest Warriors is I believe it's 2013 cartoon done by Pendleton Ward, who is the creator of Adventure Time. It aired on YouTube for a little while and then switched to Verve when they couldn't fund it through YouTube anymore. I was very obsessed with it when I was in my final year of high school, and so I of course cosplayed Beth, who is one of the characters from Bravest Warriors. So she's kind of like this cool, badass, like space girl. So I went to Emerald City Comic Con shortly after I finished my Beth Tazuka cosplay. And like I said, nobody knew who I was. Even Catbug cosplayer. So Catbug is of course was a very popular meme at the time, but he is also a character from Bravest Warriors. So I thought like, oh, these Catbug cosplayers are totally gonna know who I was. So I like waved to them and like said, oh my gosh, hi, that's so cool, we're cosplaying the same thing. And they just kind of gave me like this very blank stare, like had no idea who I was cosplaying. So I was very disappointed about that. So it was just a day of like nobody recognizing my cosplay, and I was pretty bummed about that. But then I of course got mistaken, since we're doing this video, I of course got mistaken for another character, and that character was Toph from Avatar: The Last Airbender. What makes this all though is the context. I was with my friend at the time who was cosplaying Korra from Legend of Korra, and so somebody came up to me and was like, oh my gosh, Korra! And then turned to me and was like, oh, are you Toph? And I was like, no, no, I'm not. Obviously the characters have like very different hair. They have, if you really break down the designs, they're very different, but obviously if you're going kind of in the moment, going by like elements that you remember of the cosplay, you know, you see black hair, you see a green outfit, it makes sense that I would get mistaken for Toph. I didn't take this very hard though. I wasn't like upset or anything. I just kind of thought it was funny, but I was more kind of like disappointed by the end of the day that people didn't know who Beth was, because Bravest Warriors was like, I guess not that popular, but that's okay. You should always cosplay what you want and what makes you happy, and I definitely was happy to be Beth, so it all worked out in the end. But anyway, that's another funny instance of when I was mistaken for another character. The next one, I was actually bummed about. Like, this actually like made me sad because I got mistaken so many times. Like, nobody got this cosplay. So to preface this, so back in 2013 to 2014, I was absolutely obsessed with Iron Man. Not the movies. I mean, the movies like a little bit, but mostly the comics. Because if you don't know, Pepper in the comics is amazing. Like, she's badass, and she doesn't take no for an answer, and she's very self-sufficient, and she has her own suit, and she has her own arc reactor and stuff, and she's just like, she's amazing, and I love comic book Pepper. I do not love cinematic Pepper, especially in comparison. Like, I was kind of like okay with her when I first watched the movies, and then I read the comics, and there was just no going back for me. I was like, I just cannot. So that's a whole rant video in and of itself. I've mentioned this in other videos, but I just cannot. I do not like cinematic Pepper. Anyway. That brings us to 2014 Emerald City Comic Con. I cosplayed comic book Pepper. So I have my own little arc reactor. I had her little glove because she has a suit called Rescue in the comics. I had the little Rescue glove that lit up and everything, and I was very happy with it. I had my little arc reactor that lit up, and I was thrilled. And I thought, like, even if people only know the cinematic version, it's gonna make sense because I have the Iron Man glove, I have red hair. There's only one character who is a main character in this series that has red hair. You know, I have her little like business corporate like, you know, outfit going on. I had like the pencil skirt with the blouse and the high heels, and I just thought, like, even if you don't know the comics and you don't know the context of like what she looks like in the comics, it's still gonna make sense. It did not make sense. Like, I didn't expect anybody to know exactly which version of Pepper I was, but I expected people to kind of get the gist of it, right? To understand who I was cosplaying. Every single Marvel cosplayer who I met knew who I was. They were all super nice. We got photos with all of them. Everybody was like, oh my gosh, hi Pepper. And I'd be like, hi, so great to be here in the Marvel squad. Like, I was really digging it. But everybody who was not in Marvel cosplay, funnily enough, completely mistook me for just about every other Marvel character there was. So for example, there was one guy who I was talking to, and this was the second day, so this was the day after I cosplayed Pepper, but my friend Aaron had been cosplaying Black Widow with me when I was Pepper, and then cosplaying cinematic Black Widow with me when I was Hawkeye for the second day. So we're on the second day, I'm talking to this guy, and he's like, oh, your friend was Black Widow yesterday. And I'm like, yeah, and I was Pepper yesterday. And he stops and he's like, oh, I thought you were Black Widow in business attire. And I'm just standing there like, when did Black Widow have an Iron Man suit and an arc reactor? Like, that never happened. So I was like very shook by that. I guess I can cut slack because of like the red hair, but like every other aspect of that outfit, it doesn't make sense with it being Black Widow, but like whatever. The next instance I had was a girl who came up to my friend and I when we were cosplaying Black Widow and Pepper, and she took a photo of us and then comes up to me and is like, oh my gosh, this is like the best gender bend ever, and then runs off, and I'm just like, cool. So she thought that I was gender bent Tony Stark, which again, I can understand, aside from the fact that like he's not a redhead, but like, whatever, it's fine. A bunch more people thought that I was doing kind of like a femme Tony Stark kind of thing going on. They called me like Iron Girl, they called me like stuff along those lines, and I had to be like, no, I'm cosplaying Pepper. Like, it was okay. I did meet one guy at a booth, and he immediately was like, oh, you're post-op Pepper. And I was like, yes, I am. Yeah, when she has like her own suit and everything. And he's like, yeah, no, I got it. And I'm just like, bless. So happy. So it was like a mixed bag that day. Like, a lot of people did recognize who I was cosplaying, but the people who didn't recognize who I was cosplaying pretty much mistook me for just about like anybody else from the Marvel universe. You know, it's funny looking back at it. I think at the time I was just kind of confused as to why people were getting like Black Widow or like Tony Stark from what I was wearing. In hindsight, it makes a lot of sense. But at the time I didn't really understand. But yeah, anyway. It was still a really great experience. I had the time of my life that day, but it's just kind of funny looking back on like who people thought I was cosplaying. The next instance comes from my very intense Attack on Titan phase. So Armin was like my most favorite character of all time ever, like Major Kin, all that good stuff. So I was cosplaying Armin to Anime Revolution many years ago, back before it became super problematic. These were the golden days of Anime Revolution before they started doing shady stuff. Anyway, I was cosplaying Armin, and to get to the convention I had to take the SkyTrain here in Vancouver, which is the basically subway of Vancouver. We just call it the SkyTrain. And so I am getting either on or off the SkyTrain. I can't remember which it was, but basically I was in the SkyTrain station getting in or off of the SkyTrain, and this guy walks by and he's like, Petra, I love you! And I'm just standing there like, I'm Armin! Like, I had my full like crossplay makeup on, I had his thick ass eyebrows, I had a blonde hair instead of orange hair. Like, I do not know, I mean, I can't understand why that guy would have thought I was Petra, because they do look kind of similar, but in the moment I was like, that's not who I'm cosplaying. Looking back, it's very funny, and I can totally see where this guy was coming from, but I think at the time I was just like, what? So that's the time that somebody very aggressively misrecognized when I was cosplaying. The final instance we have references yet another classic cosplay story time of mine. This is another one from 2017, so like old school, 2017. I guess that was pretty old school, maybe? I don't know. Anyway, so this is from when I cosplayed Toon Link to a toy show that ended up not being a cosplay friendly event. So it was just me there among a bunch of older people looking at toys. Like, the demographic was like middle-aged to older people, not in cosplay, and I was dressed as Link because I thought it was a cosplay event, and I stuck out like a sore thumb, and it was extremely awkward. I did not hear this, but my mom did. She was walking with me, and this guy walks past us and he's like, oh, an elf. Just thought that I was cosplaying like a generic elf, which again makes complete sense. Obviously I'm in like a green outfit, I have elf ears, like it makes perfect sense. Not at all mad that it happened. I just think it's really funny. I was probably very bewildered as to why this teenager had shown up dressed as an elf to this toy show, because it was not a cosplay friendly event. It makes complete sense as to why this guy thought that I was an elf. I completely understand. I do not blame him whatsoever. I blame myself for not doing more research into this event and going in cosplay when it wasn't a cosplay friendly event. It was so awkward. Anyway, so those are some of my mistaken cosplays from over the years. Very funny when this happens. I'm not mad at all that it happened. I completely understand like where people are coming from when they like misrecognize these cosplays. Like, to me, it makes total sense. It can be a bit of a head scratcher, I guess, in the moment, but like hindsight, all of these instances, it makes perfect sense why people were mistaking me for like whoever they mistook me for. So I just think it's funny more than anything. Be sure to let me know in the comments what cosplays you have been mistaken for in the past. I'd love to know, because I think it's just like, I think mistaken cosplays are super, super funny. They don't happen very much anymore. Like, as I said, these stories took place like 6-7 years ago or more. So it hasn't happened to me since. I don't know, maybe that's just me. Maybe people are just kind of like more in tune with what characters look like. I'm not sure, but like, I don't know. I'm gonna be going to a convention, like when you're seeing this video, I will be at Emerald City Comic Con, so maybe somebody will recognize who I'm cosplaying then, and they'll have more stories like this. We'll see. Thank you so much as always for hanging out with me. I really appreciate it. Thanks for sticking with me through my little break. Again, really appreciate it. And yeah, I'll see you guys all next time. But until then, Panda Faces, please be sure to take care. Bye.